If it was up to me, I would have the entire DNC virtual convention replayed on big screen TVs all over the major cities of every swing state from now until November. You see, that's the difference between liberals and conservatives. We want the world to see what their ideas are. President Trump got a 4-point bump in the polls after the DNC convention. Think about that for a minute. It's what inspired this most recent mask. Send them home. Send them back home. Let people see. Let them speak. They want us to be quiet. They want to censor us off the platforms because they know our ideas, conservative ideals, not necessarily Republican, but conservative ideals, would resonate, especially this year with everything that's gone on, getting back to normal, building business back up, putting people back to work, pro-life, law and order. These are the things that resonate with people, getting back to normal. This is the party of crazy, the party of let's radically change everything, all at once, all right now. So if you want to be a part of the Trump re-election 2020 campaign, this would be an excellent mask to start with, so that people could see. President Trump got a 4-point bump in the polls, not after his convention, after theirs. What does that tell you about the reality of what their polls are telling them? If they're even now willing to admit this, that it's now, they had Biden up by 5, now they have him up by 1. I personally think he's down by 11, at least, across the entire country. And this whole thing with the mail-in voting is just a setup for their loss. And we covered that yesterday. But Florida Maquis Mask Store, we are up to, let's see, what is it, 43 different masks. Halloween, Gospel of Jesus Christ. There's even stuff here for kids. Flatten the Curve. The whole Knights Templar Crusader thing. And even some that are actually pretty funny. Got the Jaws mask. The actual gas mask. This one has really taken off lately. The one that I'm not sure, it was a week or so ago when I designed it, maybe more, but all of a sudden the gas mask has just started taking off in sales. But thank you to everyone who has come to the store and participated. It really helps. Boy, I tell you what, the censorship is getting worse. It is getting worse and worse, but it's backfiring. It's absolutely backfiring on them. And tonight over at Twitch, we are going to talk more about that. Now, we have moved out of Act 2 into Act 3 of the game that we're playing, Middleearth Shadows of War. At the very end of last night's broadcast, we went ahead and launched the attack on Sauron, and it didn't really turn out quite like we thought. I thought I would play a quick clip from a very important part of the story here.
We must stand against them, destroy them.
They will only keep coming. Sacrifices must be made.
You would abandon me.
Sacrifices must be made.
I knew it. I knew it. I will leave that there. We would love to have you join us over at Twitch. We've got a few hundred people now. The channel over there is growing exponentially, more and more every night. The game has now hit a climax region that we are going to try to defeat the Witch King tonight. But even after we do that, we have 2 more expansions to go through. We have the Blade of Galadriel, the Desolation of Mordor, and then we also have the prequel. Shadow of Mordor to go through as well. So this isn't going to end anytime soon as far as this game goes. And we always, of course, have the discussion. This is me here in the upper right. This is what you'll see, the game right here. And then here's the chat below. And we can bring up just about any topic we want here. Gloves off. It doesn't matter. Antarctica, Venezuela, the election, any other topic, even things we haven't discussed as well. So, just a screenshot or two from last night. This was our army right before, and we kind of rolled over Sauron's army, but things got a little complicated, and I will just leave it there for you. Now, Antarctica. There's an article out that they have detected heat pulses in Antarctica. One of the things that I think gets missed in the discussion of Antarctica is what the continent actually used to look like prior to the ice. People see it now and they try to envision a civilization existing on the ice. It makes a great assumption that it was always there. Personally, I don't think this is the case. I just brought up this image of what looks like a fantasy, Gothic, European style, maybe Denmark-like civilization. I personally think, at one time, based on what science has now revealed, it looked more like this. That it was a lush, green, vegetative world. And had areas that were very warm. There's evidence that the CO2 emissions over Antarctica many thousands of years ago were much like we see today over civilization, over what we call modern civilization. And they can't explain it. These pulses of increased CO2 that are inexplicable. Well, today, pardon me, they explain these increased pulses in CO2 by civilization. Here's another image I thought would be a little bit more accurate as to what an ancient Antarctic civilization might have looked like. Now the civilization that's down there probably has had to adapt to life under the ice, and with some advanced technology has been able to survive. But this map that shouldn't have existed, that detailed the outline of the coast, could have only been made by someone who actually saw the coast. And in the era that we live in, that coast hasn't been visible for quite some time. Because it's not the coast of the ice, it's the coast of the actual land underneath. So here's the article I'm talking about. And this is from 20 August, just a couple days ago. Surprising pulses of ancient warming found in Antarctic ice samples. And this is where they are just absolutely blind to what they're talking about. Earth's ice ages are typically thought of as seemingly unending periods of bitter cold, but a new study suggests bursts of carbon dioxide often entered the atmosphere during these times, providing decades or even centuries of relative warmth amid 10,000-year stretches of chill. Such pulses may have caused glaciers and ice sheets to retreat somewhat, thus opening up new areas for plants and animals. Researchers can track fluctuations in atmospheric CO2 by looking at ice cores drilled in Antarctica, Greenland, and some tall mountains in lower latitudes. These cores contain trapped air bubbles from the compressing of the snow. Now I'll leave you this link to this article, you can read it, but they're talking about between 330,000, 450,000 years ago, there were these huge bursts of CO2 activity. But they don't put it together with current bursts of CO2 activity, with the story of quote-unquote man-made global warming. Of course, when you burn fossil fuels and you have all of this human activity and the raising of cattle and the generation of heat, you're going to have this. Is it the end of the world? No. You have to adapt to it, just like we are. But I think that's just one more piece of evidence that that continent has underneath that ice sheet vast swaths of evidence of a civilization we have virtually no historical record of. And in modern society, that's almost saying heresy, because they believe they know everything, meaning science, everything about everything, and it's only a matter of analysis now. Adding an entire Europe-sized continent full of history would be something that they would actually fear, because it might change some of their religiosity, which is the only best way to describe what modern science has become. You can't question it. You can't question their tenets. You can't even question their methods, even though the proof's out there. The more CO2 isn't making Earth uninhabitable. This is another link I'll give you, first pinned comment, that talks about how much better life is for the vast majority of humans now than it was even 100 years ago, even though the CO2 levels are far higher. Talking about infant mortality and people dying from accidents and all sorts of other different metrics that make the Earth way safer and way better and way more hospitable for human life now than it was in 1920, 1900. And of course, what video wouldn't be complete without some corona aspect of this analysis? Coronavirus set to cause largest ever annual fall in CO2 emissions. So if more CO2 makes it more inhabitable and better, I wonder what less CO2 does. Seems like that could be a problem, because that's what's being predicted. So anyway, once again, I will give you all of these images, and you can, of course, look this up and read it for yourself. But I really do believe that while we don't have all the answers in Antarctica, we don't have a complete picture yet, the idea that it's all just wind, ice, rock, and snow is just, it's just unbelievable at this point. Just common sense would tell you this can't possibly be the case. If we make the established belief that water equals life and the absence of water equals the absence of life, 80% of the world's fresh water is there. 80%. And people really don't wrap their mind around every single lake, every single river, every pond, every stream, on every continent. Take that and multiply it by 4. And that's what's in Antarctica, as far as the quantity of water. The Congo River, the Nile River, the Amazon River, the Mississippi River, Lake Baikal, all 5 freshwater lakes in the Midwest, the Great Lakes, the Rhine, the Seine, all of the major rivers of the world, and every major lake and stream and pond. All of the fresh water you can think of. Now take that and multiply it by 4. And that's what's in Antarctica right now. The idea that life wouldn't be there is ludicrous. So I will just leave it there. God bless. Have a great weekend. Please join us tonight on Twitch. I will, of course, in the description, give you the link to that and the masks. It's a great time. It's 3 hours, 8:15 p.m. Eastern Time to 11:15 p.m. every single night. We're there for 3 hours. I think it's the future. The games are not designed to be the primary focus, but they're a great backdrop. And they're a great way to get your mind off of everything that's going on in the real world, too. And that's one of the reasons I use it, personally. It's a way to just escape for a couple hours. So, talk to you soon. Like, share, subscribe. God bless.